Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and tonight we're going to take a little look at a map. Now, I like maps. I've got many different maps. I've got, for example, some speed maps, not original ones I will say, but the famous John Speed maps of 1610. I've got a selection of those, including the one for Worcestershire. I also have some 18th and 19th century maps as well of Worcester. However, this map is a little bit different because whereas maps are generally drawn by cartographers and they're all set out with scale and things like that, this map is a little bit different, and it's because it's been created by a local historian to Worcester, and that is a person called Pat Hughes. And Pat Hughes is quite a famous local historian. The latest book that she's written is like a children's book of Worcester, really, and is available at places like the Hive. So if you get a chance when lockdown or when the restrictions are eased, you'll be able to go along there and have a look at that book, or maybe even purchase yourself a copy. Now, she's wrote many books in her long career and is often seen in the Hive doing research. She's still researching to this day. And she created this map in 1977. I'll show you it here. This is a framed copy that we have. So this was created in 1977. It's a very interesting map, like I said, and it's based on what Worcester would have looked like at the time it was visited by Elizabeth I in 1575. Now, these maps have been reprinted probably about 4 or 5 times since the 1970s as such, really, and Pat Hughes actually updated them as well over the years. Now, what makes this map special is not because it's a map of Worcester, not specifically drawn as a cartographer would do with scale and that sort of thing. It's actually a 3-dimensional map, as you can see from the video. From this video, the other interesting thing is the colours of houses. At first glance, you would look at that and go, "Oh, that's quite nice." It shows sort of weathering of the rooftops, for example. It shows some houses with clay tiles and then some with a darker clay tile or even slate on there. Well, actually, it's a bit more special than that, because when you look at the map closely, you will actually see there is a key to the different colours of the houses. For example, one of the pale terracotta coloured buildings, like these here, it says here, these buildings still exist in whole or part. In other words, you will actually find these in the locations where they are. And if I sort of draw your attention to, for example, let's have down here, for example, this is the Corn Market of Worcester, and there's the old St. Martin's Gate, and there's a row of buildings there. Now, the interesting thing is, that is now where the famous furniture shop is in Worcester, which is actually an 18th century building. But if you go inside, or even if you stand and look at the glass and look in, you will actually see some of the timber from that building. So interestingly, as it says here, these buildings still exist in whole or part. Well, they're actually within an 18th century building, but as they're colour coded like that, it's because they are still there, they still exist. Then, as you can see, there are other ones, for example, a browner coloured one. These appear in prints, photographs and paintings, so it's quite interesting that you'll be able to find prints and paintings of those. And then as you go down, there is also some saying suggested by available evidence. In other words, there's written accounts saying that this particular building was there. So, like I said, it's not like your standard map, like the speed maps of 1610. So they are not drawn to a specific scale. They're not drawn by a cartographer. This has actually been created by a local historian. I think it's absolutely fantastic, really, especially with the fact that they've colour coded the buildings on it. And it's very cleverly colour coded. What is there archaeologically, what is there still standing, what is there in photographic evidence. But as it says, it's what Worcester would have looked like when Elizabeth I visited it in 1575. Some people struggle with this map purely because it looks as if it's upside down, and that's really because it was drawn showing the view of the city that the Queen would have had when she entered, because we know, unlike most monarchs, they didn't come along London Road and entered the city through the Sidbury Gate, the South Gate. We know Elizabeth I on the 13th of August actually entered through the North Gate in Worcester. And we know that she stopped for a short period of time at White Ladies, which is in the Tithing. There's still a bit of the nunnery left. It's actually part of the grammar school today. She stayed there and composed herself. It was also there where she was warned or told to ride in a carriage because it was such a wet, miserable day. And it's August the 13th, but it was a wet, miserable day. And therefore, she decided to ride, and there are illustrations around the painting, around the map, and hopefully you will see that at the bottom there. And there is the Queen sat up on the horse. And obviously, that would have meant she would have entered through the North Gate. So the North Gate is at the bottom. So it's showing the Queen processing through the city from the North Gate up to the cathedral. Now, I'm not going to talk about the visit of Elizabeth I in particular. I really want to just talk about this map. And like I said, it's a fantastic map. It's a map showing buildings that are archaeologically there, are recorded there in written evidence, and obviously ones that are still there. So a few things that you may recognise. If you came in through the North Gate, the foregate there, the old medieval gate, you would come up to the cross in Worcester, which would have been marked by a market cross originally. And that was a very important crossroads purely because it's where the north-south road, so the high street basically, crosses the east-west road running across the two. So it was really a really important crossroads. It was even the job centre years ago. If you wanted a job from the medieval period onwards, even during the Tudor, you would stand there, and when someone came along saying, I need some help bringing the harvest in, you pushed your way to the front, you put your hand up. So it's like the job centre really. And then you've got the main bulk of the high street running all the way down there. You will see the churches on here, for example, churches like St. Helen's Church and so on. And then they eventually come to what is the cathedral precinct up here. And you've got the full precinct. So you've got obviously the earlier cathedral with its separate bell tower just on there. And then at the back where College Green is, you will eventually have what's left of the old castle. And you will see on here it's marked up as Castle Hill removed early 19th century. But you've still got the mound and even part of the ditch around there. And some of the buildings, like I've mentioned in an earlier video, some of the buildings were still being used, as you can see, Jailer's house on there. But it is a really interesting, map. As I mentioned in my newspaper article for the Worcester News relatively recently on Wormstree House, that's located just of here. A quadrangle building, so very much like a cloister building. And if you get a chance, do look up the article that I wrote about it, because it's an interesting building. And famously, this whole site here was used for many things, including Dent's gloves. Also, the Wormstree House was also used as the bone china works, the first bone china works in Worcester from 1751. But you will see running along here is the lane Wormstree Slip that ran down to the riverside, and there's Copenhagen Street running parallel with it, with this huge collection of buildings in this area, which is the quayside, an important dock. So really, this has been an introduction to this map, not necessarily a talk on the visit of Elizabeth I. Maybe that's a video for the future, but I think it's a really, really good map. It's definitely up there with all my other maps that I own for Worcester. And like I said, created in 1977 by Pat Hughes. My copy I got from the Commandery when I was a child, purely because I just was fascinated by this map, really, especially with the fact there's so many buildings still there today. Might not look it, they may look a little bit different, but they're still there technically. And the other interesting thing, really is that you can still buy it if you go to I would say some of the museums in Worcester. Tudor House, I think, was a place where you could actually buy this map, and like I said, it has been updated. There are a few mistakes in it, and that's not because Pat Hughes made the mistake, it's because there was no available evidence at the time. And I will draw your attention really to the commandery, because the commandery, as it was built outside the city wall, was the hospital of St Wolston. It was right up really to the time of Elizabeth I, when it was being used more of a lodging house than anything really. And we've got here the chapel, and the chapel built at the back, which is actually, if you know it, where the car park is. But we actually know from the archaeology, that we helped and got involved with, that the chapel actually sat here instead. So it's quite an interesting map in its own right really. But if you get a chance, do go and find yourself a copy of it and look at it, or alternatively get yourself a copy, because it does look good on a wall if you are actually interested in history, and more importantly local history, Worcester history. Now, like I said, would you like a video on the visit of Elizabeth I? Because if so, we can do one specifically on that. Or would you like to have a look at the other maps that I've got, maybe some 18th century maps, or maybe even the Speed maps? Maybe you'd like to learn a little bit more about Speed in his maps that he did of counties and also some of the county towns. If so, let us know, because remember, this is as much your channel as it is ours. Now, we've on to Thursday, and obviously tomorrow is often referred to as Black Friday. So we have just posted on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter about a little offer that we've got on tomorrow, and it's going to run until Saturday, and it is a buy one get one free on our vouchers, our walking tour vouchers. For those that don't know, we actually do walking tours of the city of Worcester, and our most popular tour is our general tour of Worcester, known as the Worcester Story. And what we actually do is have some vouchers. Now, they're very much like the theatre vouchers that you can buy, and they are vouchers that when you purchase them from us, we will fill in an expiry date on them, and we've extended that, by the way, because of COVID-19. And you'll be able to give them as a gift, and obviously with Christmas coming up, it will make a perfect gift for someone. And then all they will need to do then is give us a ring at some point and book a specific date to do the Worcester Story tour, a tour of Worcester looking at its history from the earliest origins, from about 700 BC right up to really the present day, and it is really worth doing. We do have other things for sale as well that's not on offer. They include the Worcester Story booklet, and also a self-guided tour of Worcester really called the Worcester Walkabout. If you want to find out more about those, like I said, visit our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, especially with the Black Friday offer of buy one get one free on the vouchers. But also, if you go online at www.discover-history.co.uk, if you click on shop, you will see all the other things that we have on sale, and it's really worth it, especially with Christmas being just around the corner. Anyway, on that note, happy Thanksgiving Day to any American viewers of this channel, or shall we call it the Day of Mourning, as the Native American people call it. And as you probably know, I mentioned that yesterday in our video on the Mayflower. Anyway, as always, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye bye.